Thanks for joining us. Israel says Gaza's Rafah crossing with Egypt will reopen in the coming days. According to the Israeli government, Palestinians will only be allowed to use the crossing to leave the Gaza Strip, and any movement will need Israel's approval. But Israel did not say if or when Palestinians will be allowed to use the crossing to return to Gaza. The U.S. brokered Gaza ceasefire deal calls for the reopening of the crossing in both directions. Egypt has denied it's coordinating with Israel on the reopening of the crossing. Well, the Rafah border between Gaza and Egypt is the Strip's only crossing that doesn't pass through Israel. For years, it served primarily for the movement of people. Before the war, the crossing was jointly managed by Palestinian and Egyptian authorities in coordination with Israel. But that changed last year when the Israeli army stormed and occupied the Palestinian side of the Rafah crossing, destroying the infrastructure and closing the border altogether. Hani Mahmoud has more from Gaza City on what the Israeli decision means for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
The timing of the statement and what's going on the ground is quite concerning for many of the people, because it channels down to what has been going on, creating these difficult living conditions for people. Again, it's a permanent sense of displacement, a permanent sense that this life is becoming so difficult across the Gaza Strip due to the ongoing genocidal acts. And by the way, the ceasefire did not bring an end to the genocidal acts on the ground. It's only one form of violence that has stopped, which is the mass bombardment of the Gaza Strip. But actions on the ground continue with heavy artilleries, with the deployment of drones and quadcopters, internal displacement. And now there is an exit out. So more people now, they worry, the realities are very difficult for them. Stay here and face with these challenges, devastation on the ground, or risk departing the Gaza Strip with no guarantee to return back. Let's not forget, thousands of people made their way out of the Gaza Strip, fleeing from the horror of the unpredictable, are now stranded outside the Gaza Strip. There is no guarantee they're going to come back, and the fear now this is going to extend to include more of the people who wish to reunite with their family members outside of the Gaza Strip. So it's one way out, and this isn't just a freedom of movement. This is not just restoring mobility for Palestinians, more restricting and rather accelerating the depopulation of the Gaza Strip.
Nour Odeh is in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank and has the view from there.
Israel has been drip-dropping its implementation of the ceasefire agreement, placing conditions that it judges when they are met or not. So essentially not opening the 5 crossings as stipulated in the first stage because not all the bodies of Israeli captives have been handed over. The announcement on the Rafah crossing in particular is very interesting because it only talks about Palestinians exiting Gaza, and we saw that response from Egypt denying that any such thing would happen, saying that if and when the crossing opens, it will have to be both ways. So people going back to Gaza and people being able to leave Gaza for whatever reason they may need to leave Gaza for. The response in Israel to that has been, well, we're giving people a chance to leave Gaza. If Egypt doesn't want to take them in, that's their problem. And that really speaks to the mindset of Israel here about how the implementation of the ceasefire agreement is. It's according to Israeli demands, to Israeli priorities, without really taking into account all the other details that matter to Palestinians, but also to the Arab guarantors in this agreement. The Egypt, Qatar, and others want to see stabilization. They want to see things implemented, improvement on the lives of Palestinians. That will have to include the Rafah crossing, for example, the entry of tents. All of that is being conditioned by Israel on various things, including priorities that are not exactly announced by Israel ahead of time.
Now speak to Hussein Haridy, who's a former assistant foreign minister in Egypt, joining us from Cairo this hour. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Is this something that Egypt would accept, for Palestinians to be leaving the Gaza Strip in this way?
No, I don't think so. Egypt is committed to Security Council Resolution 2803 that was adopted back in October 17th last and which has endorsed the Trump's peace plan, comprehensive plan for a ceasefire in Gaza. According to the resolution, I guess all crossings shall be opened for the Palestinians to move in and out of the Gaza Strip. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, we are also committed, Egypt is also committed with working with the European Union and the National Palestinian Authority to operate, when the time comes, the crossings, including the Rafah crossing. You may recall, Madam, that according to the agreement signed between the European Union, the Israelis and the Palestinians back in 2005, a mission of European observers were stationed in Rafah and other crossings. And I guess Egypt is working with the Europeans on this plan also. And I understand that the European Union is willing and is ready to deploy observers, European observers on the crossings. So, so this is the Egyptian position. And I believe, I'm not going to comment on the Israeli decision, but however, let me say that this is temporary, and Israel is committed to the implementation of the Security Council resolution, and we are coordinating with the American administration. And according to the resolution 2803,
right,
the board of peace that will be chaired by President Trump himself would supervise the deployment of the International Stabilization Force. And one of the functions of the ISF, the International Stabilization Force, is specifically to secure the border areas, including Rafah and the Rafah.
Okay, let me jump in there because you've mentioned a lot of different points. But first, just stick with me here on the Egyptian position. When it comes to the Egyptian position, for those who need medical evacuations from Gaza, would Egypt also refuse those cases who need to leave the Gaza Strip?
No, I don't think that we have many Palestinian patients in the Egyptian hospitals, and other Palestinians injured or needed or have needed urgent medical assistance or aid were allowed to cross Egypt and to go to other destinations in Arab countries and in foreign and European countries. So I guess I don't recall, and I don't think that Egypt would prevent any Palestinian, whether injured or not injured, to pass through the Rafah crossing. But having said that, we need to operate the Rafah crossing according to the Trump peace plan.
And according to the Trump peace plan, Mr. Haridy, I'm looking at the points right here. Point number 8. It says that the crossing must be open in both directions, as you know. And this statement put out by the Israelis says that it will just be open in one direction. I mean, there's lots of ambiguities here. What is behind this, do you think?
Well, I'm speaking from an Egyptian standpoint now.
Right.
Ever since 1948, the date Israel was established, we have been accustomed to Israeli maneuvering when it comes to to implementation of ceasefire agreements or any agreement with the Arab countries or with the Palestinians. If I take the case of Egypt, we all recall the issues that they made about Taba, and we got Taba back. So we are accustomed to this. But I'm having said that, I guess this is temporary, and of course we'll take Israel to task if they don't implement the Security Council resolution.
Who will take Israel to task? Who will take Israel to task?
You have the Board of Peace on the one hand, because if you go back to the resolution of the Security Council, the Board of Peace chaired by President Trump has a legal international personality, and it exercises, according to the resolution, a strategic oversight on the future of Gaza, including the ISF, the International Stabilization Force. In other words, how to translate that into practice? Once the ISF is deployed, I guess all the parties concerned, including the Israelis, would have to commit to this resolution.
Would there be any coordination at this point or in the short term with Egypt taking place regarding the opening of the Rafah crossing as far as you're aware?
Well, I guess we coordinate mainly with the Palestinians, with the National Palestinian Authority, and with the American administration, with Qatar, the mediators, with Egypt. And if it needs be, we will be in contact, not coordination, we'll be in contact with the Israeli authorities until the ultimate Israeli withdrawal from Gaza Strip.
We'll leave it there. Hussein Haridy, you're a former assistant foreign minister speaking to us from Cairo this hour. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, madam. Thank you.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.